everybody, Doodle here, and last night I had the pleasure of going to the Game Awards. Whoa! It turns out I live pretty close to the theater that the Game Awards is hosted at, and my friend Squeaks was kind enough to join me so I wasn't alone. For those who aren't in the know, the Game Awards is just an event that happens every year and is meant to honor standout games in various categories. You've got one for audio design, best indie game, funny ones like best esports coach, which is, specific, but shout out to whoever won that. In reality though, it's a bit of a mixed bag as to how much time is spent on the awards versus the crazy amount of game announcements and trailer drops. But overall, I just want to cover my experience going, some thoughts on the games that won, and so let's keep this show on the road. Let's talk about the Game Awards, woo! As someone who doesn't normally watch the Game Awards, I'll say that I went in with low expectations. I feel as though the Game Awards has kind of become a joke, especially amongst gamers. Yes, it's about celebrating games, but gaming as an industry is still a bit of a weird space, with not everything that is super popular always being kinda classically prestigious. I feel like I've seen shots from previous years where the audience area looks empty. There was that guy that snuck on the stage last year. Overall, I thought it'd be fun to go, but I also thought it'd be a bit of a goofy time. My seats were pretty decent. It was on the cheaper side, a little far back, but I had a good view of the audience, the stage, and the production crew, which was really cool. It was also hilarious to have a very clear view of the crew's teleprompter all night, so I could really easily see who was riffing on stage versus sticking to the script. They did a really great job with the presentation of the stage. There were so many different set colors, and the audio was always balanced pretty well. There was never too many awkward pauses. I feel as though the flow of people coming on and off stage and cutting to different segments was always really smooth. The performances they had really stood out to me. And they didn't just have an orchestra on stage. We had one with pyrotechnics and this great Nordic ambiance. We had another that was sort of a weird musical nightmare take on Alan Wake 2, which was interesting. It was really cool to get to see the Final Fantasy singer and have her line up with the video in the background of the character she's singing as. But have this giant audience cheering and clapping and earnestly celebrating these games. Definitely in my life, gaming can be a very solo, digital experience. And it isn't like the movies where you can easily go to a movie theater and experience trailers and that sort of cultural hype in person with other people. You could really hear the gasps when Visions of Mana came on, or the whoops and roars of excitement from the God of War DLC being announced, and the laughs with the big walk trailer and its goofy characters. But I will say, even in person, the elephant in the room is that, while this is called the Game Awards, it is definitely more about the game announcements. From my seat, I could see what looked like a 30-second countdown timer for those on stage giving acceptance speeches. I imagine this is how long they would wait before playing the music to persuade people to finish their speech and get off stage. And that's for the categories that were lucky to get any stage time at all. I was super surprised to see the pre-game show started with the best family game, which Super Mario Wonder won to little to no fanfare. Most people weren't even in their seats yet. They would do quick runs of category awards being announced in succession, which felt especially sad as Pikmin 4 managed to win Best Sim/Strategy Game and had basically no congratulations. On the one hand, I get it. If speeches drag on, they know they'll lose momentum and viewers online, and with less numbers, it's going to be hard to keep growing the show year after year. Corporate sponsorships are really key to making sure that these events have enough money to happen, that they can be as prestigious as they are. But I also think it's important to question if it's only worth growing an audience that watches for E3-esque announcements. I feel like they could get creative and find better ways each year to push in more time, add in more aspects dedicated to people who make these games. Outside the theater, there were people with signs in support of unionizing the gaming industry. And I think overall that's an aspect very absent from the show, a sort of acknowledgement that many people who are working on these huge, profitable gaming releases are also at a huge risk of losing their jobs. 2023 was an especially rough year, starting off back in March with EA laying off 800 employees, Epic, the studio behind Fortnite, laid off 16% of its workforce, Bungie laid off 8% of its overall staff, So it feels especially sad to see even top leads of the biggest game projects in the industry get rushed off stage, as though there's some sort of time sink that's keeping people from what they really want to see. Overall, I would love to see more behind the scenes footage of the people who make these games, and maybe even some more specific name recognition for those in charge of specific categories. In some ways, I also think it just takes time. The gaming industry is really beginning to hit its stride, with top industry artists becoming well known in a way you might see for a movie director or famous actor. I think it takes a literal decade for the people behind these games to become famous enough that casuals will want to tune in just to hear what they have to say. Next year will mark the 10-year anniversary for the Game Awards versus the Oscars, which has been happening for almost a century. I mean, come on, really think about that. There's only been 10 Game Awards, but there's been almost 100 Oscars? That's not to say that mainline award shows aren't also riddled with issues and lack respect for people who work on them in their own industries, but you know, that's a topic for somebody who knows way more than I do. As a whole, as we're looking at all these games from the past year, let's really just try to remember that gaming is an art form, and as such, there are so many artists and other hardworking people behind these games. They deserve not only respect, but the ability to live a good life off the work they do. And with that, let's go over some of the top games from this year. I'm mostly just going to stick to games that are relevant to me and not so much give a review of them. More than anything, I really just want to celebrate these games and the moment that they're having. And my god, what better game to start with than Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, which won Best Action Adventure Game. Breath of the Wild was an open-world action-adventure released back in 2017. Would open world be the new direction of Zelda? Could Nintendo reuse the assets to create a quick turnaround sequel? Well, maybe in theory, perhaps. But 2020 ended up being a crazy year, and with it, delays for games across the board. The first teaser for Tears of the Kingdom was back in 2019, and initially supposed to release in 2022, before getting delayed until this year. Nintendo really kept this game under wraps, and all the trailers up until we got close to release were pretty vague and didn't show much gameplay. But the floodgates would open when Aonuma showcased the ability to fuse objects together to create these weird, unique weapons and machines. This Zelda would focus around players' creativity and the sheer amount of work the team had to put into this game's engine to handle all the different compatibilities of the crafting, along with the physics. It's a lot. You really also have to admire that they were able to make such a complex system that was actually very accessible for gamers of all skill levels. That, along with Sky Islands and an underground area to explore, would create a whole new game for so many to throw hundreds of hours into. I'd also like to think that for kids who grew up with the original Breath of the Wild, these 6 years mean they were able to come back into this world in a new way. I have to imagine that for many of them, this will be a defining duo of games as they grow older. Next we had Super Mario Wonder, which won Best Family Game as I mentioned earlier. I'll say it before and I'll say it again, I cannot believe that Super Mario Wonder became one of the top games this year. 2D platformer Marios have become sort of a basic series the last couple years, just churning something out for the masses to get their kids for Christmas. But they wouldn't make a big splash. To me, it felt like Nintendo's safest by-the-book series. And yet, Super Mario Wonder ended up being the one to finally push that envelope. It's not easy to take a series that has been going for decades and figure out a way to breathe new life into it. The team did an amazing job finding new ways to push the visual style. Detailed character animations, beautiful landscapes full of vivid colors, and so many dazzling effects. This game isn't just creative in its looks though. The platforming and level design are also lovingly considered. The over-the-top creativity of the Wonder Flower and the curiosity it compels in players to want to further explore and look around simple 2D spaces, it's so refreshing to see. In a year where Mario is making big strides outside the gaming industry, it's very nice to see his original form get a masterful revamp. And then for Best Adaptation, we had The Last of Us. Video game adaptations into movies and film have been historic failures, especially when I was growing up. For so long, they've just felt like naked cash grabs by studio execs who have never played a game, let alone understand what makes them special. There was cautious optimism though when it was announced that the king of drama TV series HBO would be releasing a live-action rendition of The Last of Us, a series about a zombie apocalypse taking over. This is a game that has become one of the pinnacles of gaming when it comes to storytelling. But could they pull it off, or was this doomed to be another washed-out lookalike? Well, you probably don't need me to tell you that it was, in fact, a huge hit. Over 30 million viewers, which makes it one of the biggest series for HBO since Game of Thrones. It wasn't just popular with casual audiences though. Critically, it was nominated for 24 Emmys, from Outstanding Visual Effects to Writing for Drama Series to Outstanding Lead Actor. And what allows The Last of Us to stand out in this adaptation is the care taken into bringing this into a new medium. Actors fully understanding the original story and what it means to people, the use of prosthetics and testing fibers for practical effects, developing a visual guide for how the makeup could handle different stages of sickness, the sets blending real environments with great physical prop details and then compiling in digital assets to further push the collapse of the cities. It is just so beautifully done. They even got a real giraffe, guys. I mean, that is so rad. Truly, if you haven't seen the Making of The Last of Us clip on YouTube, I'll have it in the description below, and it's a great testament to the passionate people behind the scenes. And one of my top moments for the night, Pikmin 4 would snag a win for Best Sim/Strategy Game. 2014 would mark the first mention of Pikmin 4, with 2015 Miyamoto being quoted as saying it was very close to completion. From then, it would essentially go dark until years later at the September 2022 Nintendo Direct. Of course, excitement amongst fans was rampant, but there were still some fears. Would this new dog-like critter Ochi replace Pikmin and make the game too easy? Was the game going to be super short due to Pikmin not being a top priority game for Nintendo? And even if the game was amazing, my biggest fear was, would people actually like it? Could this be the final nail in the coffin, that Nintendo could spend so much time perfecting this title and then realize that there's no commercial audience even on an install base as big as the Switch? And when that is your fear, that Pikmin 4 could be the end of the series because no one loves it, then you can understand that going on to see it win an award at the Game Awards? Oh man, it just makes my heart sing. As a lifelong fan of the series, I recognize that Pikmin 4 took on a difficult balance. How can we push a strategy game that is both compelling for hardcore fans of the series, who have waited forever for this game, but also have enough to appeal to those who have never played any Pikmin game before? And in my eyes, I think they just about did it. Creating a whole new upgrade system allows players to pick and choose where they want to optimize for their difficulty. Ochi can make the game both more accessible to new players, but bring in some new strategies to those who have been here forever. And that is all on top of a game world that is breathtakingly gorgeous. We've got classic enemies dating back to the first in the series, alongside brand new creatures that are also terrifying. One of the new locations changes as the time of day goes on, making the world feel a little more alive and allowing for new exploration. I could just go on and on, but you know what? Let's keep things moving and just say that this is a huge win for Pikmin. This game has gone on to sell over 2.5 million units versus Pikmin's 3 1.2. And it feels like a whole new breath of life has been brought into the community. Hopefully we won't have to go a whole nother decade waiting for number 5. And of course, last but not least, our bona fide game of the year. Before 2023 even started, it was known to be full of top hitters. A sequel to Spider-Man, a fresh new Bethesda IP with Starfield, the long-awaited sequel to Alan Wake, and so many more. It really was an endless year for amazing game releases. But I know I'm not alone, that out of nowhere, a tsunami of hype crashed as Baldur's Gate 3 fully released. A role-playing game set in the D&D universe with turn-based strategy. I had never even heard of this series, let alone knew that the Dungeons & Dragons had some sort of fully fleshed out RPG. I truly don't think I have felt this type of cultural phenomenon since Animal Crossing New Horizons back in 2020. Friends not only messaged me left and right about their experience with the game, but even in real life, people were asking me if I was playing, wanting to know my character, and seeing if I'd join their session. This entire year, people have just been discussing what happened in their specific story. Were they rejected by the alluring Asterion? What decisions they made and what the consequences were? And as a deep lover of choice-based games, to have one so masterfully done come out of nowhere truly made my year. And I'm 100% in agreement that this is the defining game of 2023. It truly felt like one of my first next-gen experiences. To have so many options for creating a playable character, and to have those options properly reflected in how other characters treat you, and the unique things that can happen in your story. And on top of all of that, it is fully voice acted, and set in this amazingly detailed universe. Ugh, the visuals were so beautiful. And it launched without any extra paid add-ons or needing to buy DLC. It really launched as a full, complete game. And in a time where it's so frequent for games to be released half-baked and needing years of extra development afterwards, it's so refreshing to be able to actually play a game from start to finish at release and have such a good time. Baldur's Gate 3 is a game where you can feel the love and creativity pushed into it. And with over 22 million copies sold, I hope they really get the proper time to make another one that is somehow even better. But honestly, yeah, overall I had a really great experience going to the Game Awards. Living so close, it felt nice that I could go to this event super casually and I didn't have to stress about travel or hotel. Unless you're deeper in the gaming industry or just really enjoy game announcements, I wouldn't say it's something that you should go out of your way to attend, but if you have a chance to go easily, I'd say take it. It was really cool to attend this year, to celebrate so many of the hype games and see announcements for the future. I would love to hear what stood out for you. I hope you're all having a great holiday season, and I will see you later. Doodle out.